Hi everyone, welcome back, where we simplify web development one step at a time. So, in today's tutorial of Angular Essential for Beginners, we are going to deep dive into two-way data binding in Angular. As you can see it from the poster here, which means connecting our HTML file and TS file using ngModel and other directives. By the end of this video, you will understand how to implement two-way data binding and how it can make your forms and components more interactive and efficient. So let's get started. So in Angular, two-way data binding allows us for automatic synchronization of data between our HTML and our TypeScript file. So between both of our models, which means that whenever our user updates a value in the UI, our data model will also update, and vice versa. If a data model is updated, our UI should also update. So for that, we use two-way data binding. And this is especially useful a lot in our forms and input field, where whenever user writes something in the input field, we want to reflect it immediately on our UI. So now we'll switch to our VS Code and we'll get things started. So the key to implementing two-way data binding in Angular is ngModel. As you can see here, this ngModel directive is really important, and this is part of our forms module. This helps us to connect both of our TS and HTML file. Okay. Now we can go to our app.module.ts file. This is where our logic starts from. So we will go to app.module.ts file here. Inside this, first thing we'll check is that if we have the forms module here or not. So here in our imports, we will write forms module, this one, and this will import it here. As you can see, forms module, okay, from Angular forms. So this makes the directive and services from forms module available throughout our Angular application. So everywhere we can use our forms module now, okay. Now after this, we will go to our app.component.ts file. So inside app.component.ts file, we'll write the code to connect our TS and HTML file using ngModel, okay? So inside this, we'll write our code to connect our HTML and TS file, okay? So let's create a simple example to see two-way data binding in action. So first thing which we need to create is, for example, we have a title property here, right? This one. This is my Angular app Abhi, and we'll have another property called name, which would be of type string, and it's a empty string for now, okay. So we will go into our HTML, and there we will define a input field, and in the input field we will say the input field will display our name, okay, this name property, this one. Currently it's empty, and we want whatever user writes there, it should get stored inside this name and vice versa. So we'll say this placeholder will store our name, so we'll say enter your name. And now we want to connect that name property, so we will use ngModel directive, okay. And to use this directive, we will connect it with our name property, which is in our TS file, this one. So we have connected it, and now to do the connection from TS to HTML and HTML to TS, we will put this ngModel into round brackets, okay, and we need to cover them with square brackets like this. ngModel is equals to name, okay. So to remember this, you can think of it as a property which is, we usually call it like a banana in a box. Like you can see two round brackets and it's inside a box like square brackets. So now we have access to our name property, okay, here. And now in the next line, we can have a p tag, and there we can say hello, and we can print our name, okay. So this name, we have access to it here, and it's coming from here, we are storing it, it's coming here and then there, okay. So here the ngModel syntax, you see, it is what's enabling two-way data binding. Now if we go into our application and we do ngserve, we will go to our application, and you see, we see here enter your name. Currently we don't see anything here because our string is empty, right? As soon as I write Abhi, you can see hello Abhi. So you see we are writing it in real time here, and we can see it here. It's because of our ngModel. So yes, you can get a bit confusing like how all of that is happening. So let's break that down and I'll show you. in more detail. So this ngModel directive binds the name property, okay, the name property in your component class, the one we see here in our TS file. ngModel takes this name property and binds it to the input value of our HTML, okay. So as soon as we start typing into our name here inside this input field, ngModel takes it and binds it to this name, okay. And this name we are continuously rendering it here using this round curly brackets here. So any changes we do, it will display it here, which is immediately reflected in our view. I'll show you again. So when we write something, whatever, it will display, right? So you get the logic what I'm trying to say. So as soon as we write something, ngModel, it is already connected to name, right? So it takes all the data to her name, and this name we are storing it here, right? This name, and this name is we are using it here using our curly brackets. So we are getting all the changes in real time immediately. So this ngModel helps us to create a two-way seamless communication between your data model, this, and your view HTML. So the two-way data binding isn't just limited to our built-in HTML components like this input field and p tag. You can also implement two-way data binding in our own component as well, and I'll show you using an example. So we will create a child component. We'll say ngJC. So create a component and call it a name editor. Okay. So this name editor, the whole logic, we don't want to put it into our app component, our main parent file. We'll create a child component and do all the logic here. Okay. So we'll say name editor. So now we have a name editor here. Okay. And inside this, we will define our input and output, which we will need so that our this name editor component, where we will be defining our input property, it can communicate with the parent component. Okay, so we will use this component, and this is a child component. We load it into our parent component. So to do that, first of all, we need to declare a input property. So input property is what we will receive from our parent component. For example, if it's preloaded with the input name or something, then we need to make sure both of our parent and child component are in sync. So we will say @input name property of type string. That would be an empty string. Okay, and we will have an output property. So every time a user changes the name, right, we want to update it to our parent. So that time we will use the emit eventer to send that using our output. So we'll say output name change equals to new event emitter, and event emitter, this would be of type string. Okay, and we will declare a on name change method. We'll make a on name change method. This method basically it will get called every time the user changes our name property in our HTML, and this will basically have that value from our HTML, which will be of type string, and every time this value is changed, we'll store it inside our this dot name. Okay, and this dot name is the connected to our parent. Now every time we have this, we'll say this dot name change, our output property, and we want to emit the change. So we'll say dot emit, and we will send our updated name. Okay, updated name is what we show to the user, like hello and whatever name. So now we will go to our HTML file where we will have our input tag or whatever, right, input field, where user will do all the changes. So we'll say input, say the value of this input will be equals to name. Okay, the name which we receive here, this. Okay, and so here we'll connect our input to our on name change method. So inside this we'll create here a template variable, and we'll say it name value. Okay, and we will say name value dot value. Cool. So now we are taking it directly from the template variable, the value whatever user writes in this input, and we are putting it inside this on name change. Okay, like here, and we can have a placeholder, and we can say enter your name. Cool. Now our this part is done. So whenever our on name change is called, it basically comes with this value property, and this child component will send it to parent. So now we will go to our parent component, which is our app component.html file, and inside this, in here we previously had the input, but now we have shifted this whole logic to our child component. We will say app and the name of our component. So the name of our component is name editor, and now we will be able to see our input property. Okay, when we go here you can see, but at the moment we haven't connected it. Whatever we type doesn't matter, we won't be able to see our real-time update here, as you can see. So to make that work, we need to pass on our property. So we will say our name property, we'll use the same syntax, okay, this ones, and we will cover it with this, okay, and we will say the name property, and it would be equals to this name, which you can see here, this name, okay, and this name is actually what we are showing to the user. So with this syntax we have connected and we have set up our two-way data binding with the child component. So that's how we implement two-way data binding in Angular. So today we have covered the concept of two-way data binding, how to use ngModel in two-way data binding, and also how to implement two-way data binding in our custom components. Now we can also see, if we write anything here, we can see that it's working properly fine. Okay. So that's how you implement two-way data binding also in your components. I hope you found this tutorial helpful and you learn two-way data binding. As you know, it's a really powerful feature that can make your applications more interactive and responsive. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give a thumbs up and consider subscribing the channel for more Angular tutorials like this. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.